Hello friends, I'm Eli Lucas, and welcome to the Dev Life, where we break down the complex into bite-sized chunks, one tutorial at a time. If you're into practical developer tips, deep dives, and modern JavaScript workflows, you're in the right place. Now, have you ever been wondering what all the different module options were inside of the package.json and tsconfig files? Or maybe you've been wondering how to ship both CommonJS and ECMAScript versions of your packages? In this video, I'm going to walk you through building a Node.js package from scratch, complete with CommonJS, ESM, and even TypeScript support. We're going to go over all the options you might have seen, but don't quite know what they did in your config files. By the end, you're going to know how to structure a library to ship code into multiple module formats. Let's dive in. Okay, so I have a fresh copy of VS Code open here. So go into the terminal. And what I'm going to do is initiate a new npm package. And inside of here, I'm going to turn this into a mono repo. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to have a couple of different applications, one of which is going to be our library that we're going to be working on. And another one is going to be like a client test app that we're going to use to test the library with. So we're going to tell everything that it's in the packages folder. Let's go ahead and create that folder. And in here, we'll have our lib package. And we'll also have a app package. Let's go into the folders and initialize the repos in here. And we'll go back into the app folder and we will install the lib library. So we'll say npm I lib. And up here, we will see that in our dependencies, lib is now a dependency of app. All right, so let's start by creating a file up here in lib. And we'll just call this index.js. And inside of here, we'll have a simple function that's going to be called say hello. It's going to take a parameter of name, and then we're simply turning back hello name from CommonJS. That way we'll know we're calling the CommonJS version of the file. And down here on line 5, we're exporting the say hello function using the CommonJS export syntax. And this will expose the say hello function to any other library that will like to import it, which we will do up here in the app folder. So I'll create a new file up here and I'll call this index.js. And in this file, we're going to import the say hello function from the lib package. And then we'll console log out the results that come back from calling the say hello method. Let's save this and come down here into the terminal and give it a shot. So we'll say node index.js, and you can see that we have hello world from CommonJS. Great. So this is by default what Node supports, CommonJS right out of the box. But however, it also supports ESM out of the box as well. Let's see how we can get that up and running. So we'll up here in the lib to be able to tell our files apart initially. We'll call this index-esm.js. And I'll copy in a very similar function, but formatted just a little bit differently to export it using the ESM module syntax. So we're saying export function, say hello. And up here in app, we'll create the file. And here we will import it to using the ESM syntax. So we'll say import, say hello from lib, and then kind of do the same thing. Now over here in the index, notice that we're saying hello name from ESM. Let's see what happens when we run this file. Index-esm.js. And you can see that we're getting a little bit of complaints from Node, but if we look closely, we are getting some output, but let's come back to that in a second. Let's talk initially first about what Node is telling us. It's saying like, hey, the module type of our index ESM file is not specified, and it doesn't contain CommonJS. So if we come over here and take a look at that, we're like, yep, we're returning back ECMAScript models, and that's because by default, Node is going to expect CommonJS from a JavaScript file. Now, the place where that is controlled happens in two different places. You can either specify it directly in the file name by making the file extension mjs for module.js, or you can come over here into the package.json file and change the type of the app, which will turn the default JavaScript files into ECMAScript files. We won't do this for now. What we'll do for now is we will just back out of these changes eventually. But we'll come over here, and instead of saying index ESM, we're going to say index.mjs. And then the same thing up here. This was actually the file that it was complaining about, but it would have also complained about the other file if we hadn't updated it. Let's see what happens when we run this now. We'll make sure to update what file Node is running. There we go. Now we got hello world from CJS. Well, it's not complaining anymore because since now we've named this file MJS, it expects this file to be in ESM module syntax, which it is. However, you can see that we're still saying hello world from CommonJS. Now, where that is coming from is here in the package file. You can see we have this main. If we take a look at the description here, it says the main field is the module ID that is a primary entry point to your program. So we're saying the primary entry point is this index.js file, which is the CommonJS version. So this is the one that is going to. So we're actually able to import the CommonJS version of the file into ECMAScript, which is kind of cool. However, this isn't what we want. We want to make sure we're using our ECMAScript modules when we're using ESM ourselves. That way we get all the advantages that come along with it. And the way that we do that, it's a little tricky, but I'll show you. You might have come across the module keyword before, where this makes it seem like we can specify files like this. And even if we read this, it says ECMAScript module ID as a primary entry point to your program. However, this doesn't quite do what we expect it to do. So see, if we run this, we're still getting the CommonJS version of the application. And the reason why is that this module, this isn't really a part, this isn't a field that Node recognizes as a valid field. This was kind of added in as a de facto standard used by bundlers like Rollup or ESBuild or Webpack or something like that. And they would respect this field and they would go and use the ESM version of the file. But we're not using any bundlers right now in our application. So Node doesn't by default go and look at this. However, there is a newer field that we can use here called exports. Okay, so like I said, this export, it's relatively newer. I don't remember which version of Node is like 16 or 18 where it finally became a standard. Whatever version is it of Node it is, it's one that's so old you shouldn't be using it in production anymore anyways. But what this is doing, this allows us to specify all the entry points in our application that we want to expose to the outside world. And so here we're saying from the root level, when people use the require syntax, this is the file we want them to use, the index.js. And when they're using the import syntax, this is the file that we want them to use. So let me save this and let's give this file a run again. And boom, now you can see there we're using the ESM module. And if we go back to just index.js, we're using the CommonJS module. Now this exports is actually pretty cool. You can do a lot more with it than just specify which module loading scheme that you want to use. You can also do things like subpath imports, which we'll show off here in a second. You can also specify different files if like for different environments, like if you're loading a a file for the browser, you can specify a specific one for the browser. If you're want to also run the same system in Node, you can specify which file to load if you're running in Node or Electron or a bunch of other different platforms. You can also specify like different runtime environments, like if you're in development mode or production mode. It's really pretty cool. Well, let's real quick show how you can do a subpath import using exports. So if we come over here, let's say we are going to have a math library. And I'm not going to import anything yet because I want to come and actually create the files first. So I'm going to give it a different folder structure. I'm going to say utils/math.js. And then I'll also make a ECMAScript version of it as well. And, oh, I made that a folder accidentally. Okay, so here's the ECMAScript version. So we can see which one we're running in here. We're going to console log that we're in the CJS add function. And all right, and then in the ESM version, we'll export the add function. We'll say in this ESM add function. And now if we come back over here, so notice that we put these in a utils folder, but we are exporting something at the math subpath. So here we want to say require utils math.js, which I think is right. And for import, we want to import math.mjs, which I do believe is right as well. Okay, so we'll save this, and over here, so let's go ahead and say var add equals require. Okay, so previously, you've been able to do things like this, where if the folder existed and the file existed, you were able to like import stuff deeply from a package. And this led to kind of people being able to import stuff from libraries that the library author didn't really intend to be exported publicly. But when you're using this export syntax, here, we'll go ahead and show it real quick. When you're using the export syntax, you're not allowed to do things like this anymore. So go ahead and save that. And yep, node index. And so we'll get an error here. And you can see that the invalid package config exports cannot contain some keys starting with dot and some not. Yep, this is supposed to say dot/math. There we go. Now this is the error I was expecting. Package subpath utils math is not defined in the exports. Okay, so we can't import things that we're not exporting on purpose anymore. But we are exporting math. So if I do this, and then if we say add 2 + 3, let's console log that so we can see the answer. There we go. So we can see we're in the CommonJS add function, and the answer is 5. Let's go over to the ESM version. Let's make this something different so we get a different answer. Node index-esm.mjs. All right, and so now we can see we're in the ESM add function, and we got the answer we expected as well. Okay, great. Let's see how TypeScript and a application that goes through a build pipeline functions in this world. And so in our lib folder, let's go ahead and install TypeScript, as well as a TypeScript build tool called tsup. And I like tsup because it's going to build and bundle our TypeScript for us. And we can do it using simple command line options, where if we're going to use something like rollup, we need a rollup config and have to install a bunch of libraries and stuff like that. tsup's going to do everything that we need to do with just a few options. In fact, let's go ahead and set up the build script in here real quick while we're thinking about it. All right, so in order for this to work, we give it a tsup, and then we give it each of our entry points. And so since we're importing from the main path and a subpath, it's going to have 2 entry points. We're going to have main TS and math TS. the formats we're still going to support both CommonJS and ESM from our lib package. So we're going to do the two formats here. The DTS means that we want source maps, or not source maps, that we want typing information to be exported, some d.ts files, and we also want source maps as well. All right, so now what I'll do is initialize a TypeScript configuration file. Okay, come in here and let's take a look at a few of the options here in the TypeScript configuration file that have to do with modules and whatnot. So this right here, this is specifying what module code is generated. So if we come look at the options, we see we got a bunch of different options that TypeScript will generate from us. So we could do CommonJS, could do ESNext, which was the default was Node Next. And so Node Next is going to be the latest version of Node and what's coming next and all the latest and greatest features that come with ESM imports and exports. So that is what is set by default. However, since we're using tsup and we're specifying what we want here, that is pretty much going to be ignored. Our target is the target version of ESM that it's going to export. This doesn't have much to do with the module import export syntax, but it's saying like, hey, what features of JavaScript do we want to be able to support? So we're saying latest and greatest there. And down here, we got the declaration set to true. But what we do want to change is we want to change the out directory to make sure that when we build our files, they're going to go to the dist folder. And let me just make sure. Yeah, I think that's good. Now up in here, let's go ahead and get rid of all the regular JavaScript files and only keep the ESM versions. And up in here, we'll do the same. Okay, now you see we're getting an error. If we come over here and look at the error, top level export modifier can't be used on value declarations in the CommonJS model. In order to do this, we want to be able to set the type to be module, to tell it that by default, we are now using ESM modules in the application. And once we do that, we can see that our exports go away. Now let's actually add some TypeScripty things in here by putting some type declarations. Okay, and let's just have a save TypeScript ESM. Awesome. Now let's go ahead and run that build command. Okay, so now we have our dist folder. And up here in the dist folder, we have a few different options I wasn't quite expecting. Let me see what's different. Oh, yeah, our file is called index.ts. All right, so let me remove that and npm run build. There we go. Okay, so now we have a couple different options for our index file. And so by default now, our index file is using ESM exports. And to differentiate it, the CommonJS ones are using the syntax CJS for CommonJS. And same thing here in the utils folder. We got our main math file, and then we got the math.js file. And if we come and look over here, one more thing that we need to do, sorry, real quick, in the lib folder is we need to make sure now, since these files change, we need to update these to their correct positions. So let's see, the CommonJS is going to be index.cjs. The regular one is going to be, when I say regular, the ESM one is going to be index.js. And down here in math, we got math.js. This will just be CJS, and this will be JS, and I believe that is all good. Okay, give that a save, come over here, and let's see what happens when we run our files again. Oh, I need to add utils here, or dist. Yep. Okay, now we got hello world from TypeScript ESM, in ESM add function there, and what you can see here is that it's saying the ESM add function, but even our CommonJS is saying ESM right now. So let's just come in here into the source code itself and make that say CJS so we can actually tell the difference between the two. There we go. So we got hello world from TypeScript CJS, and then node index-esm.mjs. Now we got hello world from TypeScript ESM. And there you have it, a Node.js monorepo that supports both CommonJS, ESM, TypeScript with subpath exports. If this was helpful, hit that like button, subscribe for more dev tips, and let me know in the comments what do you want to see next. Should I expand on the exports syntax a little bit more to see what's possible? Should we take this repo a little bit further and see what it takes to publish a monorepo package to NPM? Let me know. And until next time, happy coding.